Okay, so I'll start, although there aren't very many people today. Anyway, it's recorded, and therefore, if you want to listen to it, you can do so. Yeah, so this is the team project tasks that I've listed here. What I will be covering today is the item number 4, that is extending the basic bounded model checking to arbitrary LTL formulas. So how do you, what is the semantic basis for the translation? You've already seen the translation for bounded model checking for the simple properties like AG of P and G of P and F of P. And you will see that those two BMC formulas, like what I've shown here, this is for AG of P. This one is a special case of the more general scheme that we will be discussing today. See, this particular one is briefly mentioned in the Croning textbook, but it's not fully described. The reference material for this is this paper. Okay, this is what I'm following. You see, this paper was published in 2001, around the same time that SAT solvers, due to a couple of breakthroughs like CDCL, the causal conflict-driven causal learning, plus the various heuristics that were used, had broken several. I mean, due to those breakthroughs, were able to solve SAT instances for a couple of orders of magnitude larger examples than before. So until then, the most popular model checking method was one based on BDDs, and that's why. And then this was the first application of symbolic model checking without BDDs. Bier was credited for that. He did this work while he was at CMU, and when he was working with Edmund Clark, who's credited with one of the other people having discovered symbolic model checking. So I will upload this paper. Okay, so the details, if you want to refer to it, or beyond what is there in the slides, you can do that. So these are, something that you had seen, the BMC formula that we generated for safety, and the next one for liveness. So how exactly, what is the basis for generating this, and how can that basis be used for extending that to LTL formulas? Oops, this is not the slide I wanted. What happened to the slide? This is the one I wanted. Okay, so just to recap, so the model checking problem for LTL is defined as follows, given an LTL formula. So implicitly it is, I put this A in parentheses because what is involved is in checking that for every path pi from every initial state of the Kripke model M, you want to show that the path pi satisfies phi, and that's why implicitly there is an A at a universal quantifier over paths. In general, I mean, not only SAT check, even the general LTL model checking using what is called the Tableau method or the automata-based one, which we will discuss in the next class or two. It consists of, and especially if you want to convert into a SAT problem, because when you want to check that something, a universal formula holds good for all things using SAT solvers, what do? You take the negation of it and check if it is unsatisfiable. Okay, even the automata theoretic methods, that's what they do. Okay, so they reduce it to checking to emptiness check of the negated formula. So even for SAT, what you do is you take the negation of phi and check if it is unsat, I should say. Okay, but nonetheless, so you're essentially converting the problem into one of showing existence of a path. Okay. So yeah, so the universal LTL checking is reduced to one of showing existence. And since you've taken the negation, showing the existence of the negation shows existence of a counterexample. Yeah. So the problem now lies in encoding showing the existence of a witness of an infinite path to not phi in M as a SAT problem. So you need to find a way of encoding the LTL formula for this purpose. So we'll assume that not phi, at least in general, has been converted into its negation normal form by pushing the negation all the way down to the atomic level. Okay, so that's, we'll assume. So essentially what we're trying to solve is converting, encoding an LTL formula for checking the purpose of existence of a path that satisfies it. Okay, and the way it is used is, as I've shown for normal LTL, universal LTL, is by taking the negation. Okay, so BMC, as you've already seen, exploits the fact that every path in a transition system, in a finite state transition system, has to eventually be a lasso. It has to lasso. So bounded encoding. So we do bounded encoding, okay, to show an absence of counterexample up to a certain length. So given a model, Kripke model, that is a transition system and an initial state and an LTL formula, we encode this for some k, okay, into a propositional formula. Yes, and then we run SAT satisfiability on that for increasingly larger k, and the encoding is done in such a way that any satisfying instance, if there is a satisfying instance of the formula, that shows the existence of a path that satisfies phi. Okay. So, and we run the SAT for increasingly larger k until you either find a witness to the existence of a path, or you reach a completeness threshold that is large enough to conclude absence of any witness to that. So that is the bounded model checking framework. Yeah. So as I mentioned, So you've already seen the bounded model checking K formula for these two types of formula, GP and FP, where P is predicate, and you will see that these will be these are special cases of the scheme that we will be describing. So this conversion, this generation of this BMC formula for any given LTL will be based on the concept of bounded satisfaction. Okay? So that's what I'm going to be defining now, which itself will be based on the original standard semantics of LTL, which was recursively defined as satisfaction of paths, infinite paths for various formulas. I've shown only the temporal part of it. So xg, you may recall, this is defined by on a path by taking suffixes of the path that start with some index I. So xg holds for pi if g holds in the state whose index is 1. We're assuming that the index starts with 0. So fg is true if and only if there exists an I greater than or equal to 0, at which, and pi I here denotes the path starting from I, from index I onwards. So at that point, g holds good. So g itself can be an arbitrary LTL formula. So g is true if so for every I, pi of g is true, starting from 0. It is true for every suffix of p. Similarly, g until h is true if there exists some index if there exists some suffix starting at I for which h is true, and for every index less than I, pi j has to be the suffix starting at that, at j has to, for that g has to be true. That is, g has to hold good until h becomes true. So the release operator is the negation dual of u expressed this way. So, and that is taken as a negation of this, and then when it is simplified, you will get this. What it does is, you should read that as g releases h. This is all recap. I'm just trying to get your thought back into it. So g releases h. So what that means is either h is true forever, okay? Or it has to be, if it is, H is, yes, constantly true, or G releases, or if G is true at some point, J, then H has to be true only from starting from for every I less than or equal to J. Okay, so which means that H is no longer. Once G becomes true, H is no longer required to be true. So that's what these things are, and we'll see the translations how to handle for all these operators. Express them as bounded model checking problems. Okay. So any questions so far? Okay. Yeah. So what is bounded satisfaction, which is the basis for generation of the BMC formulas? So it approximates infinite satisfaction semantics that you just saw in the previous slide of LTL. So we say that pi satisfies an infinite path pi, satisfies an LTL formula phi with bound k, written this way. I'm sorry, we will see what that means is, it is defined in such a way that if it is true, for some k, then, oh, this should be, I'm sorry, this, the right side should not have a k, okay? So if it is true for some, k, then it is, it is also true for infinite path. We define it that way. But if it is, if you cannot, if it is false, that is, you cannot, if the bounded satisfaction is false, then you cannot say whether it is true on the infinite path. Okay, so but if the path is lassos, so in general, this is how it is. It is defined. Okay, so that's why in that sense it approximates the infinite satisfaction semantics. But if you know that the path is a lasso, then the way we define the bounded satisfaction ensures that it is true both ways. Okay, that it is when it is bounded satisfaction, if and only if. This, once again, it's a mistake. This k on the right side should not be there. That is infinite satisfaction. Okay, so that's a mistake. Okay, so that's how we will define. So last class we saw how the information about the path being a lasso can indeed be exploited. Okay, because the moment it lassos, then you know that pretty much in order to, by looking at the tail and the lassoing part, S0 to SL, do those two parts, you're able to, the infinite satisfaction can be reduced into checking some constraints over these two parts, because the infinite path is a repetition of the states between S from SL to SK, and that's what we will see, we will define. And this is good enough for us, because as we saw, any finite state systems, the way that we define finite state systems is that the only way that you can make infinite paths out of them is this way. Okay, all the paths, these are all called omega regular paths that you eventually, these E1, F1, etc. are all regular expressions defined over some alphabet sigma. In this case, these are the states of the system. So you can have these things drawn from some regular expression over that alphabet, and eventually, some portion and has to some finite part which is part of the regular expression language has to repeat. Okay, so it is, so in that sense it is good enough to define and then check for paths that are lassos, that lasso. Okay, so that is the that's the idea, because this is the only kinds of paths that finite state systems, infinite paths that finite state systems can generate. Okay, so is that clear?
So for a formula that is like g of p, then if we know that it is satisfied for some finite path, we can't assume that it will be satisfied for an infinite extension of that path, right?
No, by looking, no. See, that's what I'm saying. So you will, once we start defining it, here. See, if the path lassos, okay, if it does not lasso, if up to k there are no lassos at all, okay. If a k long path doesn't lasso, a lassoing path is exactly how I've defined here. Okay, so a k long path is set to lasso if the transition from the kth state, the successor of the kth state, is one of these things. Either is some state SL that has already appeared before K, okay? And this path is considered to be equivalent to S0 to SL, where E1 S0 to SL, followed by SL to SK omega, okay? Repeating forever. So that's how this path is, will be, the infinite path that is constructed from a lasso is assumed to be omega repetitions, that is infinite repetition from SL to SK, okay? So if you know, to answer your question, if you know that a path that you have seen, if the prefix, within the prefix that you see, a finite prefix up to K, if you have the knowledge that it is lassoing, then indeed you could precisely define the satisfaction on the infinite path, which is represented as S0 to SL, S0 to SL minus 1, followed by SL to SK omega, okay? So in this case, E1 will be S0 to SL, okay? And F1 will be, E1 will be S0 to SL minus 1, F1 will be SL to SK, okay? So all the paths could be, you know, one of these, any these kinds. So that is one. So the satisfaction can indeed be defined precisely on the infinite path that is just now described, if you know that it is a lasso. And we will use that information, whether it is lassoed or not, in defining it, okay? So it will be approximate. I mean, you can't answer it conclusively if the path has not lassoed at point K, okay? Does that answer your question?
So in general, if it does not lasso, we can't say anything about satisfaction. Like,
well, until it lassos, we cannot say anything. Okay?
So even the first statement that, like, if pi satisfies for a path of length K phi, that does not in general imply any satisfaction.
Yeah, in general, it does not. In
Right.
general, it does not. But if it lassos for that infinite path that is represented by the lassoing thing, you can precisely define it. And I think the completeness, that's why this one is incomplete by just looking at K. But the completeness follows that since for a finite state system, every path, you know, if it is every infinite path has to take this structure, there we will see that there always exists a K, okay, that is large enough, beyond which, after which you would have considered all such lassoing paths, okay? So the completeness bound, all these thresholds that we saw about, are derived based on that guarantee. Okay, for finite systems, there always exists a K, okay, at which you would have all the paths, all the infinite paths would be represented by a lassoing path of that length. Okay, so yes, so I mean, the answer to your question is yes. For any particular K, it is only approximate, okay? But if you're able to come up with bounds, and we will see what the complications are and how we already saw certain bounds for GP and FP, right? The diameter and the recurrence diameter, okay? So, yeah, so, but the completeness comes from the fact that there always exists a K, after which every path, every infinite path can be represented by a lassoing path because of this omega, okay, restriction on how we define finite state for finite state systems. Is that clear? Still doubtful?
Yes, so completeness does not hold, but even for formulas like G of P, soundness also does not hold for a non-lassoing.
No, yeah. No. But what it does hold is, if you already know, that's why this thing is, that's why I'm saying. So it is sound, if it is false, you can't come to any conclusion, okay? You can't come to that, yeah, if it is false. But if it is true, then it is sound, okay? For that K, if it is true, then it is sound, okay?
But if Yes, so
It's
that is
sound
what.
if it is true. If it is false, I would say, I don't know. If I give the answer, I don't know at that K, it is, you could say it is incomplete. Okay, I call it incomplete. You call it unsoundness. So, but if I say yes, then I will say yes in a way that it is always true. Okay, because as you will see, we will distinguish between the case where it is lasso, where it is not lasso. Okay, so yeah, so in that sense, if it is false in general, you can't conclude with anything. Okay, unless you run it up to a K, after which there is guarantee of completeness. Okay, I call it, it's an incomplete method unless you check this for large enough K. Okay, what is that large enough? It depends on the formula. Okay, so in that sense, it is still sound. It is incomplete, is how I define it. Okay. I would say it is, yeah, when it says yes, it is true for infinite path as well. If this BMC formula is false, then I say, I don't know, is the answer that I will give. Okay? Unless K is greater than or equal to the threshold. So yeah, but let's not come to the threshold. Right now it is sound in that sense. Okay, as long as you until you yeah. So for any K, so you can, if a check is true, then it is then you know it is true. Okay, then your answer is sound. Otherwise, assume that I'll give I don't know. Okay, that's the kind of answer I'll give. Okay. Okay. Okay, Diganta?
Yeah, I think I'll take a look at the formal semantics and then.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, sure. So before I do that, let's look at lassoing. What parts are lassoing and how they can be represented as SAT instances. Okay. So KL lasso path pi is exactly this. Okay. It is the K long. Okay. You go from S0 to SK, and then SK, the transition from SK is one of the states that you have seen earlier. And we assume that this particular KL lasso represents this infinite path, pi equal to S0 to SL minus 1, followed by SLSK, repeating infinitely many times. Okay. Now this one is, any such path is a SAT instance of this. Okay, so you go from IS0 to SK, and then you check if the if any of the if a successor of SK, which is SK plus 1, is equal to SL, then we say it is a KL lassoing path. So a lassoing path is an infinite path. Okay? So in the way that we will define the semantics, the bounded satisfaction is, it will be precise for lassoing paths. Okay? It may or may not be precise for non-lassoing. So the set of K lasso paths, if any exist, are any satisfying instance of this formula. Okay? So the first part, I'm sorry, there should be an I0, IT0. IT0 is missing here. IT0, and there's a T0 path from T0 to TK, and the TK plus 1, so K long path, and the K plus 1 state. It can be any one of, if it is any one of the states from 0 to K. Okay, so it can lasso all the way to S0 or S1, S2, or even back to SK. So these are the set of all lassoing paths, if any. Okay, so they are all satisfying instances of this thing. Is this clear? Any questions here? We'll see some examples. So I'm just saying the checking of whether it is a lasso or not can be converted into a sat instance. That's what so this is satisfying. So this is a particular, a path that lassos by going back to SL, whereas the second formula, the satisfying instance, because I'm taking a disjunction, k plus 1 can be either 0, 1, 2, or all the way to k. Okay, this gives all the paths. Okay, so let's look at this example. So for these two, some lassoing paths or lassoing paths in these examples. Some non-lassoing paths in, am I using TS2 or TS1? Maybe it's TS1. Okay, let's see. So 1 long, 0 long, non-lassoing path. It is S0, correct? That's the only path. Huh? 1 long, is there any 1 long lassoing path? Actually, this is wrong, I think. So 1 long means it is not with one thing. So 1 long, there is a lassoing path, correct? Because from S0 to S1, this is wrong. So I should have said yes, because it is lassoing to itself. There is a one long lassoing path as well. 2 long lassoing path is S0, S1, and S2, because there is S2 that goes back to S1. Okay, so and there is also another 2 long lassoing path, S0, S1, S1 is also a thing. So 3 long 1 is S0, S1, S2. Why? Because S2 can go back to S1. So I'm showing this is because lassoing paths, the tail, the prefix can have repetitions. Okay, so you allow for repetition. So a 4 long lassoing path is this is all for TS1. It's not for TS2. Okay, so it is S0, S1. You can have 2 repetitions there, and then come to S0. So because it is 4 long, because 1, 2, 3, 4, and S2 now can go back to S1. Okay, so that's why it is a 4 long. Oh, I'm sorry. No. What am I saying? Oh, I confused you the heck out of it. Okay, this is actually, let me read back. So this is for TS2 and S0, S1 repetitions to S2 is not lassoing because from S2 there is no transition back into one of the earlier states. Okay, sorry guys, so I might have confused you. So all these are non-lassoing paths in S2. Okay, except the first answer, 1 long is wrong. Okay, because S0, S1, you can go back to S1, so that is there. So the 2 long, S0, S1, S2 is not lassoing. Why? Because S2, from S2, there is nothing, there's no successor that takes it back to one of the earlier states. So all these things are non-lassoing paths, okay, for TS2. Clear? Any questions there? Okay. So what are some lassoing paths in TS1? 0, 0 lasso. Is there a 0, 0, 0 lasso?
What is 00 lasso?
So look at the definition here. So I'm saying it is S naught. I only take S naught, and then if there is S naught back to S naught. So 0 means the K0 being mean how many transitions there are out of S naught. Okay, 0 means you just have IS naught. Okay,
Okay, so there's no lassoing
there
path,
is,
right?
there is none. Correct. Okay, 1 means K is 1. Okay, and L is also 1. Okay. So is there a 1-1 lasso in TS1?
Yes, because there's S1 going to itself.
TS1, correct. Okay. So that part is a satisfying instance of this formula, and which represents S0 S1 omega. Correct. Okay. So that's what. So that is the only part. So lassoing part, and I'm also giving you the infinite part corresponding to that K prefix that it denotes. So 2-1.
For TS1, it is there, right?
Yeah, I'm asking for TS1. Yeah, obviously for TS2 it is not there. Okay, that we have already shown. But this is the question here is for TS1.
Yeah, because we can go back to S1.
Correct. Okay. And that one is S0, S1, S2, S2. Okay, omega. But there is also, this is also a 2-1 lassoing path. Okay, because you can do S0, S1, S1, and then S1 goes back to S1. Okay, so repetitions, I'm showing this thing to saying that repetitions are allowed. Okay, so in the lassoing paths, it's very important, for you to recognize that. So both these are possible lassoing, 2-1 lassoing paths. Okay, so that's how lassos are defined. Okay, and every lassoing path represents an infinite path. So first, let me take the translation. As I said, so because the answer is, okay, the answer to whether, K satisfaction, whether by looking at just the K prefix, you can say it holds good for an infinite path. Given an infinite path, by looking at the K prefix, whether you can precisely answer if the formula, LTL formula, holds good for the infinite path depends obviously on whether the path, the K prefix is a lassoing K prefix or there's no lasso. Okay, that's why the semantics is defined one way if you have loops, and another way without loops. So first, let me look at present the semantics without loops. Okay, just like for when we defined the semantics of the standard semantics on infinite path, because satisfaction on an infinite path is expressed recursively in terms of satisfaction of a suffix of that original path starting at some I. Okay, so that's why this definition also is defined in terms of I. There is another parameter, ik. Okay, so this is defining the satisfaction, the bounded satisfaction of a particular formula on an infinite path pi, starting with the suffix of that path at the start of suffix of path pi starting from I. Okay, so that's how it is defined, so that it can be used recursively. Then you define the satisfaction of the whole for the whole path as pi 0 K. Okay, is that clear? So that's why I'm introducing I. So you should read this as the definition for satisfaction of a formula on a infinite path. Of a suffix of a path of pi starting from I, with a bound of k. Okay, so if it is a predicate, an atomic LTL formula, then this bounded satisfaction is true if pi I. I'm assuming k is, yeah. I didn't mean to do this. Okay, first I want to do without loops. Sorry. Okay, so I want to do without loops. So if I have I, assumption is I is, So no assumption says C. So if P is, if that state is labeled at I is labeled with P, then it is true. Yeah, correct. So that you could do. So negation is defined in the usual way. Conjunction is defined in the usual way. So it's interesting part starts from X. So if I have X of F, so on path pi, okay, starting from I, okay, up to, okay, so it's a path, I'm looking at K prefix of that path. I'm defining the satisfaction of the path from I to K. Okay, that's what I'm defining. So if that I is equal to K, so when is X of F true? If it is true, if F is true in the next at the next index, the state at the next index. So if I is equal to K, since my path, the prefix that I'm looking at is only K long, that's what K boundedness is defined as. So if I is equal to K, then I can't say anything about X of F. That's why I give it as false. Okay? But if I is not equal to K, that if it is less than or equal to K, then it is defined recursively in terms of the suffix starting from I plus 1. Clear? Any questions? So this is pretty much the way the standard semantics is defined, except that because I have to define the bounded semantics, which means that I have to define what I can say by looking at about the satisfaction of the suffix starting from I on the infinite path starting from I by looking only K. So if I is equal to K, I can't say anything about X of F. That's why I'm giving false. Otherwise, it is whatever the satisfaction on the suffix path starting from I plus 1. Okay. So G of F, yeah. So Diganta's observation is preserved here. So for G of F, you can't say anything about, okay, because we are, okay. Remember what is the question? I keep repeating, okay. So this is defining that if you could answer satisfaction of G of F on the infinite path starting from the suffix I, okay, for bound K, okay. So obviously for GFF, like Diganta observed, you can't say anything because on the infinite path, how can you say whether G holds good forever? So it is always false, okay. Now F, whereas F of F, you could say something, because if it is true from anywhere from if F is true anywhere from J is equal to I to K, and if it is true in any one of those paths starting from that, then F of F can be true. Okay, so you could say something, just like X of F also you could answer in some cases. So here you're taking a disjunction. If it is true, if it is true from the path starting from F, or thing, because if it is true there, then you know it is true. So f of F is it's a disjunction of these things. Okay. Any questions here?
So here, have we pushed the negation down to the lowest level?
That is right. That's right. So the formula is assumed to be in N and F. Okay.
Okay.
So as you can see, this for the semantics, the bounded semantics without loop, if the K prefix that you're looking at is without loops, then it will not, it may not answer conclusively. So if it is false, it doesn't mean that no, there is no, that is not true for pi. It just means I don't know. Okay, that's how you have to interpret this falseness, at least in the way that we have defined this bounded semantics at this level. Okay. So I'll get to this bounded semantics definition for K prefixes that are looping. Okay. So P, not P, F, and G, they remain the same. See, for X of F, now you can conclusively say something. Okay. If I is, in the previous case, if I is equal to K, you could not say anything because you don't know. I mean, there was no information following the state SK. Whereas here, since you know that this path is an infinite repetition, it's going back to SL. So you could just say, if I is equal to K, then you start from here. Okay? You start from the suffix of the path from SL, okay, and then up to K. It's all defined only by looking at the K prefix. Okay, so you can so you can keep doing this because you know that this infinite path is infinite due to the infinite repetition of the suffix from SL to SK, and that's exactly what's doing. So as a matter of fact, for arbitrarily large nesting of X, you're able to precisely define the semantics on pi of a lassoing path. So similarly for G of F. So for G of F, starting with I, so if I is somewhere between S0 and SL, so you take the conjunction, okay? So starting from I all the way to K. But if it is even for things beyond K, what you can do is you take, because it is lassoing, you can check if the I is anywhere greater than L. Suppose it is somewhere here, L plus 1. So for that path, starting from there, G of F would be true. If F is true all the way from SL plus 1 to SK, and it is true from SL to SL plus 1. So if it is something in here, as long as it is true all the way from SL to SK, since you know that after SK, what will happen is it will start repeating from SL. Okay, therefore, that's why you take the minimum of I of L. If the path I, so we are all defining starting from I. Okay, so if I occurs if the index I is prior to SL somewhere here, then you will have to take the conjunction of, it is like a conjunction, but it is the satisfaction of that is if it is satisfied by, starting from I plus 1 all the way to K, But if it is somewhere here, then you know that because it is repeats, therefore the satisfaction can be expressed in terms of whether it satisfies from SL to SK. And similarly for for F also, so you can use the fact that here it amounts to the same thing, okay? Because for F, the existence is kind of independent anyways. The moment it gets true for here up to SK, it is already true, and so the disjunction you don't have to repeat. So the repetition is relevant for taking care of that repetition is relevant for G of F. Okay, then that's why you can conclusively define. So G can be defined as long as it is true for all the way from I to K. Any questions? See, this seems a little bit complicated because of the I, okay? Just see what it means if you were to be invoking it from 0, okay? If you're invoking from 0, you're taking the conjunction of all the way from S naught all the way to SK. After that, you know it is true for G of F, okay? If F is satisfied starting from, by path starting from S naught, S1, SL, all the way to SK, you're done because you know that what follows after SL is, after SK is SL. That you already checked anyway. That's why, so it is just looking at from S naught to SK is good enough, okay? So, and that's how it is defined. So Diganta now, okay? So I ask all of you, a question. Is this clear or is there some doubt still?
This answered my previous questions.
So how do we then generate the formula in general, okay? The BMC formula, it will have, okay, the translation will look like, we will see the translation, okay, in the next few slides. But I'm giving a top level view. So the BMC...
Sir, can you go to the previous slide?
Yes.
So here in bounded semantics without loops, how do you define that? Since we are having an infinite path and finite states, how can we...
I think in some cases you are able to give a definitive answer. In other cases, in some other cases, you can't, in which case I just return false. Okay?
Okay.
The false should be interpreted as I don't know. That I will fix. I don't know in a moment. I will tell you. So because if it is false, then it is usually you should interpret it as I don't know. Okay, so that's how it should be interpreted. Therefore, if the K prefix is not long enough and it has not lassoed, if it is lassoed, you know that the same thing repeats. Therefore, you can look at that lassoing part and then come to some conclusion. If it is not lassoed, then if you cannot answer like in X, because you have to go to the next state, similarly G, you can only tell if it has looped, right? If it leads to some point where it has looped back. Therefore, only then you can come to some conclusion. Otherwise, I just return false. Whereas for f of f, it is okay. So if it is true in any one of up to k, it can be true. Okay, and beyond that, I don't know. I don't know. So that's what. So beyond k for f of also, I don't know. Okay, if it is not true, starting from I to thing, then this can also return false. Okay, so in all the cases where you cannot tell precisely, this says as false. That's how it is handled. So as you will see, the translation, we will have one translation for the looping case, another translation into actual formula, SAT formula. But at the top level, and those are described like this, okay? So, you know, something dot K, where dot, you have a formula. If you just have IK, it assumes that the KL path, I mean, there's no KL loop in the K-long path. And if I have L here before as a, you know, before, then it means it assumes that in that K-long prefix of the infinite path, I mean, there is a lasso from K to back to L. Okay, so I mean, we'll see how the formula is generated. Okay, so the overall BMC formula for any given Kripke structure K and a property, by K will have an I and a T, will have mainly two components. One is the this path component, okay, that there is a path, okay, if S0 to SK is a legal path as per is a legal path originating from S0. That is one part. And the other part is what I call as the property translation part, okay? And the property translation parts are what are described by this funny looking thing, notation that I have introduced. And that, as I pointed out, there is one translation based on the, for non-looping K prefix path, and that is, yeah, so the non-looping part and the looping part. The loop is defined, loop K, given some L less than or equal to K is defined as, you know, that SL is the successor of SK, that there is a backward edge from SK to SL. So there is no loop that if it is that none of the successors of K occurs in the part that you've already seen. Okay, so that's one. So so this is the this disjunction of loop K of L describes if there is any you know, looping path in K. If so, then you will follow the translation as per the looping translation. Otherwise, you know, if there's no loop, then you follow the translations as per this as per the non-looping looping translation. And this is how you will have, this is the property part. So the entire BMC formula will have this part as well as the part that describes, that asserts that it is K-long path starting from S0, as well as the property path, which is a disjunction of the looping translation, non-looping translation. This basically says if it's looping, then it is, you know, it is true if it is follows the looping translation. If not, it is as per the non-looping translation. Therefore, the answer is still imprecise because it depends on, for that path, it depends on for that particular path, it is, you know, it depends on whether it is looping or not. But, you know, just because there is, even if it is looping, and if there is, you know, if it is not true, that doesn't mean that there is not a larger K that can show the existence of a satisfying path for the infinite path. So in that sense, it is in general, this is always imprecise. Okay, so if this is satisfiable, this and this, then you can say, yes, I have found a path, existence of a path that satisfies phi. If it is unsat, that is, there's no satisfying instance, then the conclusion is I don't know, because there can be a larger K for which this can be satisfied. Okay, so that is the crux. story. So first, I wanted to give you the big picture, the top level structure of the BMC formula, and yeah. Okay, so non-looping translation. Okay, let me take a sip of water. Yeah, once again, it is defined. So given a K prefix, I'm defining this as recursively, okay? Starting, so in general, I'm defining the translation on, given a K-long prefix of a path, K-long path, I'm defining what the translation is for a suffix of that K-long path starting from I, okay? And at the top level, because of the recursive definition, so if you want to get the translation for the entire thing, you will have to start from 0K, okay? And because it's a nested formula, F itself is some arbitrary formula, it's a nested, that's why you will be invoking it recursively on F, depending upon what the outermost operator is. So if it's just a predicate, then you just check if the predicate is true of the state at index Si in the K-long path. Okay, so that is the translation takes what? As I said here, it takes a K-long path characterized by this formula. Okay, and what I'm defining is given this, how to I'm showing how these two translations here, non-looping translation and looping translations. Okay, so this is for non-looping translation. So negation and F and G are just defined as a prepositional combination, no complication there. So X F of I K is saying if I is less than K, then it is whatever is the translation of F. It is true if it is true of F starting from the suffix at I plus 1, starting from the suffix of the K-long path at I plus 1. Because if it is I less than K, then you know that there is enough headroom on your K-long path to determine it. Otherwise, it is false. Okay. So GFIK is always false for a non-looping, assuming that this K-long path is non-looping. If it's F, you can, if it is true at any one of these, prefixes, it is true of F. I mean, yeah, so you have to generate, okay, I sometimes I get confused, I will say it as satisfaction. No. So here you should read it as it's a disjunction of the formula that you generate for F on each of the suffixes starting from I to K. Okay, it's a big disjunction of the BMC formula. I mean the property formula that you get for F starting from J to K for disjunction from all the way from I to K. Okay, so you should yes. So this is a disjunction of several translations of F from positions starting from I to K. Okay, and there'll be each of them is a translation of F. Therefore, this will be your formula that you generate will be a nested formula. At the top level, it is if there's an F, it's a disjunction. And for each of the Next recursive translation, it depends on, it will be a formula, and that formula will, of course, depend on whether it is what is for G. So for example, if you have f of G, it will be a disjunction of, as you will see, if f of X, say, it will be a disjunction of whatever formula that you get for X of F at the various positions. So it's a nested formula as well, okay? So looping translation is generated similarly. So the first few cases are exactly same. For P, it doesn't matter whether it's looping or looping or not. So let's start looking at from X of F, okay? So it's defined in terms of next of I, okay? So next of I, if I is less than K, then it is I plus 1 because there is headroom. If not, in the non-looping case, you couldn't say anything, but here you could say something by looking at, you could translate it based on the, by taking the suffix of the K-long path starting from L, okay? So that's what this thing is saying. So if it is if I is less than K, then it is just the whatever the translation that you get from starting from I. Otherwise, you have to do it from all the way from L to L to K, because you have the information that K successor is L. Because you're nesting, you're defining it for nested formula. That's why it is defined in this fashion. Yeah. So G of F of from I to K. So if I is, you take the minimum of L and I. So this is defined for the KL lassoing path, okay? And yes, so if the suffix that you're looking for is starting at a point that is beyond the point at which the K-long path lassos into L, then you look at all the way from L. Okay, so that's how you do it, because for the reason that I explained. So here also you do with a min of L of I. Okay. So any questions here? So as I said, the top level translation will invoke the recursive translation function that I just now showed for the looping and non-looping. So if there is no loop, then you invoke it from 0 to K. If there is one or more last loops in the K-long path, so here you're looking at, for every K-long, a lasso that exists within the K prefix, okay, the K-long path that you're generating the formula for, you will be generating one such, okay? So this is this disjunction, this is, imagine that there is a parentheses here, this and this. So if there is a back edge from K all the way to 0, you will generate 1. From K to 1, there could be several lassos, right, that are possible within that K long, as we saw. So you're generating you're generating one translation for each of the lassoing case. So in that sense, it is generating the translate because so it is generating for all whole set of infinite paths represented by the several different possible lassos that exist in the K prefix, the K long path. Okay, so that's why it's a big disjunction here. And for each of that, you're doing the translation. Okay. Yeah. So we'll get to this theorem, later on. Okay. This actually, yes. Okay. So in general, if it is satisfied with this boundary, this is satisfiable. This formula is satisfiable. The only thing you can guarantee is if it is satisfiable, then there exists a path. Okay. Satisfying the on all infinite in infinite paths. If not, you can't answer anything. But but due to reasons that I will explain later, there is always exists a K-mod. So there is a lot of sharing. I really suggest as an exercise, okay, that you should get familiar with this translation by translating some formulas on these two simple examples. Okay, for K is equal to 1, 2, 3. So here, it is so for 2, 1, 2, 3, this is simple enough that you should do it, because otherwise, no matter how much I explain, understanding recursive things is hard. But once you try a few examples, it becomes quite clear, and you will have to get the feel for the nested structure of the of those formula, and it will be and those two examples that I've given you are simple enough that you can actually do. And you will see there is a lot of sharing. Okay, there's a lot of subformulas that are repeated in this translation, and for just F, G, and X, these unary operators with sharing, these formulas are linear in the size of K. Now for R and U, they are more complex. They are quadratic in the size of K. So I'll show the translation for until. Okay, I will explain it for until. These things are there in the paper. I don't think it. Yeah, so you could refer to the paper, but yeah. So and then I will let you follow it for R based on its semantics. Okay, on the formal semantics. So what the F until G requires that F has to be true until the point that G is true. So there's a slight difference in notation, okay? So since I picked this thing directly from the paper, in earlier lectures, I had stopped at this point, the first time I'm using. So what I have shown here has single bracket, whereas what is used here is double bracket. Okay, that's a difference. The paper uses double bracket. Okay. So if there is no loop, then this is true. For the infinite path, if G is true at some point between I and K, correct? G is true, and F has to be true all the way, yeah, from for n from I to j minus 1, right? So yeah, this as you can see, we are defining it for the prefix on the k long path starting, for the suffix on the k long path starting from I. Okay, so but this is quite clear for that suffix starting from I to k. I'm just checking if it's a disjunction, because G can be true anywhere, right? It can be true at I or I plus 1, I plus 2, etc., all the way to k. If it's a disjunction of pairs of conjunctions, okay? So if G is true at some J from I to K, then you have to check if F is true all the way from I to the previous place, a point in J minus 1, and that is what. So for different possible points for which G can be true in the suffix from starting from I to K, it is generating that. Okay. Sorry. So for the looping case, there is something more that you can say. So it has this part, okay, what is there in the non-looping part, and it also has another part which says, okay, so if this I, the suffix, the index I from which you are looking to generate the formula for in that K, if it happens to be somewhere in the looping portion, that is, can I say? So if it is, if it is somewhere here, suppose it was the G part was true for one of the points here, then you have to check not only for this part, if F is true from that point when G is true all the way to K, but since you know that this is a looping path, you also need to go back and then check it from SL all the way to this I that you have in there. And that's what this thing is adding, okay? This portion, the second disjunct that it is adding is for the case where you see, so from J is equal to L to I minus 1, okay? So if that I happens to be somewhere in the looping, the lasso part of the K prefix, then you start from L to that, so for that it is adding those cases from L to I minus 1, okay? That's what it is doing. So you will have to, so if it is true at L, okay, and this is adding from I to and I to K, and this is adding from L to J minus 1. I to K, so you have to add from I to K, that portion from starting from I to K, and then loop back to L, and then add it from L to J minus 1, where J is the point at which G is true in the looping part, and that's the extra thing that you will have to add to take care of the precise version of the semantics. Okay, so I think I will stop here because going anything more about the existence of bounds, etc., will require some thought. So I will do that next in the next class. But I really urge you, okay, at least for those people who want to show up. I mean, I think you want to encourage your teammates to show up in the class. I don't know. You have to implement it with their help. So if they don't show up, then I don't know how much they can contribute. But maybe they can, and I will upload the paper as well. And between this presentation, I think you can read up. But I really urge you to work out on a small example and using the two transition system I've shown. And if you have any doubts, you please come up before next class and we can discuss it, and I will finish it off next in the next class. Yeah. Okay, any questions?
Won't the size of formula blow up?
Yeah, like I've said here, it is still, for the unary operator case, it's linear in the size of the formula with some sharing exploited. Otherwise, it will be quadratic. Okay. So the size is, yeah, I mean, it is quadratic, so it does blow up. See, there's one interesting thing that I want to show you. Eventually, these things are, see, LTL model checking is p-space complete, okay? So you can't hope. These translations are still linear and quadratic in the size of the thing, okay? So answer to your question is, it is still linear. Of course, it is the bounds where that kills you, okay? And these formulas for K itself, on any given K, it is a complexity wise, in terms of, as I said, it is still polynomial, okay? But where it kills you is the bound, okay? And you can't expect a small linear bound on the size of the formula, because otherwise P will be NP, because it's P-space complete. So there cannot be a polynomial or a bound, the completeness is shown. The K to which you will have to run in order to ensure that there does not exist any path because of the incomplete semantics.
But this will be exponential in the size of formula, right?
Now, the bounds can be exponential in the size of the formula, okay?
No, I'm saying as K increases, the
Yes.
size of formula increases exponentially, right?
Well, which is what I'm saying here, okay? This is linear in K, okay, for F and G. It's with sharing.
No, I'm saying K increases and size of formula is say 10. Okay. Yeah, as K increases,
In the size of K, the size of the formula.
not in K, but size of formula. Suppose K is fixed, K is say some 10. And
Yes.
What we are doing is just increasing the size of formula. Then it will be exponential, right?
Well, I don't, that's what I'm claiming. See, it is of course increasing for every increasing of K. For any given K, it is not exponential. That's all I'm saying, okay? It's either linear, or if you use U, it is quadratic, okay? So it is the size of the formula, it increases, yes, but it is still linear in the size of, linear in the size, in the K, in the value of K, okay?
So could you go to previous slide?
Yeah.
Okay, on previous slide, previous to this. Okay, so next. Okay, so there is a formula F of finally of F ik, right?
Yeah.
So it is the or from I to K of fjk, right? Now this each formula will have to be expanded again, right? Each of these
Yeah, that is not dependent on correct, okay? So it is that is, there is one thing, the nesting of these things is only as big as the formula size, okay?
yes.
The recursive depth is the formula size.
Yes, yes.
recursive depth. Okay.
Yep. At each time we are expanding into
Into the K, but what is being said is that there is sharing. Okay, if you don't use any sharing, what you say is correct. Okay, if you use sharing, then there are a lot of subformulas that are identical. Then it is linear, is what the claim is. Okay, I haven't actually deeply checked this, and that is what it is being said. If you use subformulas are shared, then it is, yes, the nesting is, yeah, it is, in some sense, there is a branching there in terms of the K, but the increase in the K is linear. So why don't you work out some few examples, and then we can discuss with some things as to where it is. But I want to, okay, in the next slide, because it is getting late. But one thing I want to show you, okay? So the exact complexity of the size of the formula and as to where that the claim is being made, it is in that paper that this thing is linear, is something that we will discuss next time. But here is something that I want to show you.
So actually, I'm not clear how to implement this. How we can store it as a hash table? How we can do the sharing of this thing?
Yeah. See, I will go easy on the implementation. I'm not going to ask you to. I'm okay with a non-optimized simple implementation. Okay.
Okay.
So that should be fine with is fine with me. But this is to show how this is the SAT version is probably the best. So here is a comparison that they did in 2000. This thing was published in 2001, immediately after the SHAF SAT solver that was came up. And these are formula. These are on SMV that use BDDs, and by far this does so much better. Okay, for very big case. Okay, that is done here. So it just leaves SMV, which is BDD based in the dirt. But for these things will blow up eventually. Okay, but beyond certain K, but it can go to several hundred Ks. And I think the blow up for complete verification comes from the exponential bounds of K is the point I'm trying to make. The exact details of how it is claimed here that it is linear in K, and why not there is this nesting of OR and AND, we will discuss next time. Okay, so what exactly they mean by it is linear in K, and there is another parameter of the nesting of formulas. But what the point I'm trying to impress is that although this beats SMV, that this is not a panacea. Okay, in the sense that this method based on threshold, completeness threshold, is where it really gets you is that for certain kinds of properties, there are no linear completeness threshold. You will, in the size of the formula, the threshold, the completeness threshold is always the size of the LTL formula that you will have to check. Okay, and for certain formulas, the completeness threshold can be exponential in the size of the formula. Therefore, you'll have to use an exponentially large K in the size of the thing. But what is being claimed is that the translation, the size of the formula that you translate to is with sharing is linear, and we will discuss that next time. Yeah, think about that issue and then sharpen your thoughts as well, Kapil, and we can add others. So we will discuss that and the bounds thing next time. Yeah.
So I just had one question. So even for nested formulae, this does give us very nice counterexamples, right? Like which we were finding difficult with the BDD case.
That is true. That is true. So these counterexamples come very, very Yeah, but then those counterexamples were full counterexamples, no? Ah, no.
No,
I'll take it back. So if there is a shallow counterexample, yeah, if the minimal counterexample, yeah, if the yeah, see, okay, first of all, you were comparing CTL versus LTL, okay?
yeah.
In CTL, so that's not a good comparison. So CTL model checking, each iteration S is the bound, okay? The size of S is the bound because you're doing with states, lots of things become much, easier, okay? So for CTL also we can use this bounded model checking. And there the bounds, the K bounds are, not exponential. Okay, but anyway, that's the thing. So going back to your question, okay. So let me ask So the thing is, even if it is for LTL, you're right that you don't have to do any extra effort to produce the counter example. Correct. Okay, but what if that counter example for a particular transition system is very deeply embedded, and that you'll have to go for a very long before you discover that counter example.
Right. So,
If
but
the
then that
counter example itself, the size of the minimal counter example itself is very high, very long, then this may also.
yeah, I mean, in cases where the bound itself, the bound for K itself is exponential, then the counterexample size should also be exponential, I guess. Like if you have
No. See, the bound applies only when you show the non-existence, okay, when you want to do a completeness thing. It could be, yeah, but we are talking about the counterexamples exist only in the case where, hopefully you will find it before you hit the threshold, okay? The threshold being large and exponential is applicable for the case where there are no counterexamples at all, okay? Correct? Okay, because we have negated it now. So and then we are checking the existence. Okay, so the K threshold applies for no. There are no. It does not exist. Okay, I mean no. Yeah, existential thing is there's no path. Okay, in any case, so that is for completing it. But even for the case where it is the property is not true, that there exists a counterexample. I mean, there exists a path which represents the counterexample. What if that counterexample is way too long? Is what I'm saying. That's all. Yeah. So. Yeah, but that has nothing to do with the threshold, right?
Right. I mean, what all I was thinking was maybe if the it might be that the threshold itself is big. I mean, if the threshold is small, then we should not be able to find big counterexamples. Like we should be able to find a counterexample before we hit the threshold, right?
I don't agree with that because the threshold. No, the threshold for what? Threshold for because when there is a counterexample, threshold doesn't even make sense because there exists some K for which you can find the counterexample. Huh?
Yeah, I'm saying, yeah, okay, fine. What I'm saying is something, if the diameter is small, let's say.
If the diameter is?
If for the formula, then the reoccurrence diameter or something like that is small, then, I mean, we should be able to, like, find a small counterexample.
I don't know if there is any correlation between those two things, okay? The diameter might be very large, okay? And they can be very shallow counterexamples.
So as we increase the K in this algorithm, we're actually like iteratively checking for the existence of larger and larger counterexamples in some sense, right? So when we're
Correct.
checking.
Once you find a counterexample, you're done. Huh?
Yeah, but then if we
Once you want to list
know,
all the counterexamples, correct? Then
I mean, if we know that the bound is small, like if we somehow know that, then we don't need to check for any counterexamples larger than that. So that is.
that is true. That is true. Yeah. You're right. You're right. Okay. So yeah, the depth. Yes. Okay. You're right. No. Yeah. If the diameter and those things are very small, then of course those. I mean the large. The size of the largest counterexample itself will be small. That I agree. Yeah. So in that sense, I agree. But what I'm saying is the diameter can be very large, huge, but sometimes, the minimal counterexample size can be very small.
Yeah, and that is the case
That's
that
why,
we hope to.
yeah, but that's why these techniques, as bug finding techniques, are quite useful, okay? Even though you can't prove them. So there are things, okay, where the counterexample could be reasonably, there can be reasonably shallow counterexamples that show certain kinds of bugs, okay, that that you may be able to find, okay, but it might be rare, but the length might be small, okay, yeah, but then I don't know, yeah. So I mean, anyway, so theoretically it is possible, but I agree with what you're saying. So if the diameter and those kinds of things are themselves very, you see, the thing is that the diameter, yeah, so you can apply your comment to diameter and recurrence. They can be small, okay? But your completeness threshold can be exponential in the, it could be an exponential function in the, as a function of these diameter and thresholds, okay? Most of the work, they can be exponential in the size of the, in the exponential function over this diameter and threshold. Most completeness thresholds are expressed as a function of diameter and recurrence diameter and so on, okay? There are some good formulas for which the some linear function, it is linear in terms of the threshold, okay? But nonetheless, I think you have a point too. So if that itself is very small, but still you can have maybe that completeness threshold can be exponential, okay? But what you're talking about is a different thing of the size of the counterexample. So that can be very big, but I'm not sure the point I'm making is the diameter can be very long, but they maybe transition systems, the bug could be shallow. Okay, that's all I'm saying. Okay, I'm going to stop here. Huh? By the way, there is, for those of you who are interested, there's a good talk by someone called Gerard Berry. Did you get the announcement? Hello?
No, I don't think it.
Yeah, it is. Maybe some of you, especially Digantan, some of you are interested in this kind of application of logic to the thing. Part of it will be, Gerard Berry is a very famous guy, okay? So listening to him itself is a good thing. So maybe I will.
Can you forward it?
Yeah, I will forward it. I will forward it for both the SMT course and this one. And especially if you're, he's talking about the relationship between informatics and mathematics, especially the application of logic. Okay? Part of it is how mathematics and computer science have played roles in advancing each other's research. That is one part. And the other part is, the one from computer science to mathematics. From mathematics to computer science, he uses the case of formal verification, okay? And its success, because that's an application of logic to computer science. So his talk will cover some part of that thing as well. He may not be referring to model checking itself, but certainly he'll be talking about SAT solvers and so on. So I will forward it. That's at 6:30 p.m. today. Yeah. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay.